Hi, welcome to Casual Watch Talk. Well, we've got another upload for you. Well, today I've actually got another upload for you from the live stream. This was another very interesting interview we did with a lady called Kristen from Patiala, which is a brand new watch website. Well, it's luxury goods in general, but there's a really interesting section on watches. Takes you all through the basics of different watch movements and different watch types. So I think you'll find this fascinating. As I usually mention on these live streams, the audio isn't as good as the podcast, but I think you'll find the content very interesting. So let's play the audio from that live stream, which was first published on the 23rd of October. Hi everyone, welcome to Casual Watch Talks Sunday Social. Well, we've got quite an interesting show for you, but before I do that, I will do introductions. First off, I'm joined by Kristen from Patiala, Todd from TikTok Talk, and then I've got Seiko Todd as well. Should we start with a wristwatch check? Seiko Todd, do you want to...
Seiko Todd.
Us off?
So,
yes.
I'm going against Seiko today because in honor of Kristen, I don't have a Patek. It's not in my daily... I have my Mont Blanc Nicholas Ryasek GMT chronograph.
Very nice.
So, thank you very much. It's a very unique design, which I truly love. You're not going to mistake this for something else, most likely, if anyone's even ever seen one in a while.
Kristen, I'll go to you next. What are you wearing?
Yeah, I'm wearing my Chaussee Le Couture Reverso Duetto, and I love this watch. It's such a classic, beautiful design, and then you can flip it, which I can't do backwards. And it has a different dial on the back.
Oh, that's so nice.
Beautiful.
Yeah, that is a lovely one.
Wow. Yeah, I reviewed the standard Reverso on the channel. I absolutely loved it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just can't quite pull it off for my wrist. For some reason, it didn't fit right. But I know that people that do wear it, it looks awesome. Todd, what are you wearing?
New acquisition, and I kind of changed gears after I talked to the guys in the group, and I went with the Nomos, the Campus, and I just love this watch, and it has the exhibition case back where you can see that beautiful movement that they make. And it's just really thin.
Yeah,
it's a great watch, especially for the price. I'm really enjoying it.
So it's a manual wind, and it's got the California dial.
Yeah, it's a manual wind only, and it has the California dial, which is cool.
Mm-hmm.
But I do like the fact that it's manual wind only because you really get to really enjoy the movement. It's not hidden by that rotor. Great watch.
Yes. Yeah, and I'll go next. So I'm wearing my much loved green Datejust, where you can't see the movement; it's completely hidden. But Mikola over at Man Cave Leather, who sponsors the show, made me this. It's 21 mil, so it's a bit of an annoying lug width, but he made me this leather strap for it, handmade, absolutely awesome. So this is included in the review that I'll be posting soon. So it's getting a bit hot here in Florida, so I'll have to probably take off the leather soon, but I'll wear it whilst I'm indoors. Awesome. Okay, well, Kristen, we've invited you on. We'd love to hear about your new watch. Well, it's a luxury publication, but it's around, you've got a really cool section on watches, and I've read the whole thing, and I think it's ideal for definitely new watch collectors and more seasoned watch collectors, because it goes into different terminologies, complications, I like the one that was, what's the difference between a chronograph and a chronometer? Because I think that's really confusing when you start out. But yeah, we'd love to hear more.
Sure, absolutely. So I founded the Patiala as a luxury encyclopedia. There you go. So it's an evergreen resource to answer your questions of all things luxury. I'm a luxury expert and journalist. I write for Bloomberg, Forbes, Robb Report. I was an editor at Elle and at Elite Traveler magazine beforehand, so I bring a really strong editorial background. And I founded the Patiala earlier this year to share information on all things luxury, like champagne, caviar, luxury travel, jewelry, and of course, watches. when I started in the watch industry, I found that it was really difficult to learn about watches. Everything was either too entry level, or it was assuming a baseline of knowledge. And I didn't have that baseline knowledge. I'm like, what's that thing in the back that's turning? What does that do? But I was lucky enough as a journalist to be able to go to all the trade shows, meet watchmakers, executives, and ask all of the dumb questions to learn about watches. And then once I became a watch expert writing about watches, I decided to start this platform to teach people the basics. So it goes from entry level 101, what are the different types of movements, quartz, mechanical, automatic, manual? What's the difference between a chronometer and a chronograph, as you said? I think we as watch aficionados take for granted how difficult it can be to learn. And, I hear a lot of retailers tell me, I'm like, what are some of the silly questions that people ask you? And they say that people will come in, they'll buy a $15,000 watch, come back 3 days later, my watch isn't working because they didn't know that they had to wind it. So I think giving people a resource where you can really learn all of those things that you're too embarrassed to ask other people is a great way to get more people involved in the industry and give them confidence.
Excellent.
I couldn't agree more. Because even I think when you're starting out as well, and you're trying to sort of get that base knowledge, I think even sometimes forums can be slightly intimidating as well, because you don't know whether you're asking too basic a question or whether you've got no judgment on whether your questions are normal or whether they're so obvious. And and also, I've done a lot of watch reviews, and I don't think I've done any. I think maybe only Teddy Baldassar and a few others are quite good at doing those sort of grassroots from the ground up videos where they talk about sort of the basics and things like that. And you perhaps forget, well, I certainly forget how important that is and how that actually gets people into the hobby instead of scaring them. And also, being able to judge prices of things as well, because you can get very good quality, complicated watches across a whole spectrum of prices, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you touched on something that just made me chuckle a little bit. My son's boss, he was like, "Oh, someone gave me a Rolex. It was like a family member, and I don't think it kept very good time, so I just got rid of it. I sold it to somebody else." And I'm like, I don't think he knew that there was no battery in that. They just get used to the battery world. If you come from the 80s or whatever, you just assume everything's battery operated.
Right. Yeah. For vintage Seikos, for example, one of the things that when we're hunting. So vintage Seiko or vintage anything is kind of like hunting. And so you go on different platforms, you're looking for things, and invariably you'll get someone that'll put up like I'm a chronograph person. And so they'll put up like an early 6139 Seiko chronograph, and they'll say, yeah, it needs a battery. Yeah. And so we're like, we want to, so we'll track that guy, and because chances are it wasn't advertised properly. And it may turn out to be a good deal. But yeah, I see that a fair amount online. And I think you're right. I think it's more of a generational issue where, I'm the oldest one here, I think. So, I remember getting some of my first watches and you had to wind them. And it was no big deal. And then everyone wanted a digital watch. So I remember getting my first digital watch. But yeah, I think it's interesting. I think something like this, especially in the luxury area, would be excellent because you get a lot of people that probably want to own a status symbol of some sort, like a watch or what have you, but they may not know enough about it to make an informed decision. And so I think something like this is truly excellent.
Thank you so much. And I think people are interested in watches, but they don't know about all of the watches that are out there. And then, of course, because retail is so tough right now and there aren't a lot of watches in stores, you can't even walk in and say, oh, I'd like to learn and see things in person, because with some brands, there are just literally no watches, as we all know. So a resource like this that's sort of splitting things up by the different types, the movement, the complications, you might say, oh my God, I've never heard of a jumping hour watch. That is so cool. That's next on my list. I want to go get one. So it's really just about opening up the industry to people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it does an excellent job. So have you sourced all these articles? Do you write the articles yourself, or is it like a team that?
I do write them myself. Yeah. I approach each one like writing a book. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Wow. That's really cool.
Now that's why, see, now I'm even more intimidated. So do you do all of the writing for all of the stuff on this website? Because you cover way more than just watches.
Yeah.
I do, yes.
Wow. Okay.
Wow.
Well,
wow.
I'm going to sign off soon, Sam. I don't know if we can talk with this person.
Well, yeah, it's funny. I apologize for accidentally showing Hodinky at the start there, but the reason that I had it up was because I was trying to see whether they'd done anything like that, and they haven't done anything like that. You know, that terms of the kind of the breakdown of the basics. So I was trying to do like a compare and contrast. So I think this is it certainly made me think, wow, I should maybe in the video format as well. I should on my own channel, maybe we should do some more sort of basics, going back. Cause the other thing that I like about the way that you've done it is you've broken it down in such a way that it's sort of broken down in paragraphs. So it's not like massively long, sort of technical analysis. You kind of distilled it down to the core things that you need to know and why it's important, which I think is, I've been reading it for since you sent it over, and as I was preparing for this, I think I've read most of the articles on here. I find them. I'm amazed that you've written them all yourself. That's really cool.
That's fantastic.
Thank you.
So you're a one-person show in terms of content?
Yes.
Unbelievable.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Yeah, no, it's been a couple of long months with, writing all of the stories. There are over 500 watches in the encyclopedia, and about 50 stories, and working on building it up as time goes on. So it's been really fun. And, I've been writing about, it is. No, but it's been really fun to share my passion for watches and to write about things that don't necessarily get covered. Most of the publications out there that are fantastic are news focused. So they're focusing on new releases, or they're doing watch reviews. And if you're like, I don't know the basics, I just want to learn about these things, there's nowhere really to go. And I know that firsthand as someone who started covering watches 8 years ago, I think it was.
Okay.
So yeah.
So how did you develop this broad-based? Oh, sorry, Sam, I didn't mean to jump in front of you.
No, please.
This broad-based capability. So a lot of times people, like, I'm an engineer and I've gone and done all the thing up to a PhD, and I'm like focused on what I do. And so if I was you, I would maybe be really good at watches or jewelry or something. How did you develop this cross-sectional thing? Because food and wine itself, I know enough to be dangerous with wine. And it's a mystery to me in terms of the global market, and of course the what's the word I'm looking for? Where they're people are buying cases of wine in hopes that they would increase in price. I know some people that do that very well. But how did you develop this level of expertise to write about it across this large subject area?
Well, I mean, it's literally my job to write about luxury. So while other people go sell things or doctors, I learn about luxury and I write stories. So I've been lucky to do this almost my entire career. I started in fashion and then I moved on. I'm a really curious person and I ask tons of questions. And I'm also quite a bit of a nerd who takes a lot of classes and reads tons of books. I have the Wine and Spirit Education Trust Level 3 Award in Wine that I earned with distinction. It's like the equivalent of being a certified sommelier. So to do that, I spent hundreds of hours studying, thousands of flashcards, tasted so much wine, but it's something I really love. So I did that, and I sort of focused on one thing at a time almost every year, and then I like to move on to the next thing, and so that's how I've done it.
So was it 8 years ago that your passion for watches started, or is it something you've had for a long time?
I was not passionate about watches at all. I didn't wear one, actually. And then I started at a magazine where I had to cover watches. And I knew a guy who worked at the Blancpain store. And I said, hey, I have to start writing about watches. I need to come in and maybe you can teach me the basics. And, he told me about moon phases and dates and perpetual calendars. And then I went to Baselworld pretty shortly after. And I was just fascinated by the movements, by the watchmakers, by learning everything about these different complications. And I'd never heard of a tourbillon before, and seeing them move and understanding how old these complications are and how long watchmaking has been around, it just really captivated me. And I wanted to learn everything that I could. So, I've been lucky enough to go to Switzerland so many times that I think they look at my passport like I'm a spy when I come in, and I just smile and say, I write about watches. Go to different manufacturers, the different trade shows, events. And so over the years, I've really gotten to see behind the scenes of the industry. And I speak French fluently, so I get to hear all the little back talk that they might not want the English speakers to know when we're touring around. So.
Oh, wow, that's awesome. Yeah.
I'm just sitting here going, this is insane. This is amazing.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think because I'm certainly feeling, because I've got my day job, but then obviously my hobby is this, and I hyper focus on watches, and I'm not sure there's just so much to learn and so much to know and so much to absorb all the time, and I'm not sure I could if there's room for another topic, or certainly like a host of topics like that. So that's really cool. So, have any of the watch brands approached you? How you said you picked sort of 500 watches, for the encyclopedia? How did you go through that process?
I decided what complications and types of watches I wanted to cover first, made a list off the top of my head, who I thought would be the best for all of these different categories. And then I sort of did deep dives into each brand and said, oh, I forgot about this H. Moser watch, or, Rolex has this awesome one that would be a great fit here. And then I just reached out to all of my brand contacts and shared with them the list of what I was doing. And if they had any watches they wanted to suggest, I would consider them editorially. And then got all the pictures and resized them and wrote the copy. So,
and are you stopping at the 500, or is it the idea to ultimately grow the encyclopedia from year to year until it's quite a comprehensive sort of? Because I can't think of another publication that does that. That's such an archive.
There are still some watches categories that I want to cover that I haven't gotten able to do so yet. Some of the stories are still a little bare bones. They have the intros and then just images for the watches instead of entries. But if you look at like tourbillons, for example, that goes into in depth about tourbillons and then has copy for each of the watches explaining what makes each one so special. So first working on filling those out. Then I'll go into different categories that I haven't covered yet. Do brand profiles. What makes Rolex Rolex? What makes Patek Patek? Why should you care about the Royal Oak? Cover iconic watches, Zenith El Primero. And I'm also really passionate about supporting independent watchmakers. So shining a light on people like Laurent Ferrier, who are doing just absolutely stunning timepieces with really great complications.
Yeah. You think about doing anything out in print, kind of like there's a one that's like the watch annual or something like that. Because I think watches in particular lend themselves really well to just that old school model of having that on my coffee table and being able to
like the Houdini concept, right, Todd? Where they put out the magazine occasionally, and you get this glorious photography going on.
Yeah. My background is actually print publications, and I had thought this might be a coffee table book about luxury when I started thinking about La Patiala, and it quickly outgrew that and became this website. So I think each of the encyclopedias could theoretically become their own book at some point, or it could be an A to Z guide to luxury once the encyclopedia is more filled out. But I know the trials and tribulations of being in print publishing, and I'm not getting back into that world anytime soon.
You definitely have to charge a premium now, which I think Houdini does, isn't it? Like
they do
$35 for a magazine or something.
I forgot it was 25 or 35.
Yeah, it's pricey, but I don't know.
It's nice.
I did. Yeah, like I bought the watch annual, and I was like, oh, this is cool to look at. Like to have these beautiful pictures, because to me, like what's so cool about the whole hobby is that these things are like little art pieces, really, that you're wearing. You don't need them. It's like a little piece of art on your wrist. And
right.
I think that's why it translates so well.
Part of my passion and the reason I started the Patiala is to help people find more beauty in the world. And every time I look down at my wrist and I see a beautiful watch, it just brings me a little bit of joy. And no one knows outside of the industry what I'm wearing. They don't know that it has mechanical movement inside, that I can flip it around, but it's just something that's for you. And I think that that's really special. And the world can be a crazy place. So it's nice to find something that brings you joy that you can wear with you every day.
And we can send you down another rabbit hole too, because one of the people online just said, how about a vintage section? Because that is a great area and a tricky one. It's a very tricky area, especially when you're a new buyer. You don't know if you're buying, an you know, like one of those Indian specials where it's just been Franken watched together, and like you can get an Oris for $17 versus actually getting a beautiful Omega Seamaster or a vintage Seiko like Todd collects.
Or the common one that people think of is Universal Genève, don't they? Where that's quite a popular vintage one, but they're also quite hard to service because a lot of them were in house, and you have to like cannibalize other watches. So I think there's even in the main brands, there's you know, there's some confusion, isn't there?
Absolutely. And I'll be the first to say I'm not an expert on vintage watches. I did buy my first one this year. I bought a vintage Piaget watch at auction at Bonhams, and it was a confusing process for me to figure out how to buy a vintage watch. You know, they say it's working at the time of cataloging. What does that mean? Am I going to spend several $1,000s buying a watch that's a lemon? So it is scary, but I do think eventually I'll do a vintage watch section.
I was just going to go with what Todd was saying here. That's what I went out to go get. This is one of my first mistakes in vintage watch collecting was this Oris. Tell me the story. Well, you know, in terms of navigating auctions, and you probably know this well. In fact, that would be a great thing to write about. How do you navigate auctions like Bonhams? I bought from Bonhams before. And they actually, when they were doing their one for Seiko, they actually had a bunch of Franken Seikos on the website. Oh, it was a big travesty in the Seiko community. I mean, the Seiko community is really tough. And so vintage Seiko community. And so they're like the emails were and this is in Hong Kong. So this is Bonhams in Hong Kong. Oh, wow. And we just kept throwing them like, that watch is not right. That watch is not right. But they had a couple that were correct. In fact, I always like to have, this is one of them. This is a flyback chronograph 717 from 1970, and so it's actually the first automatic chronograph flyback. So I can push the button right. I didn't do it right. What did I not do right? Trying to do this on, you know, when you're trying to do this from, it's not doing it. Anyhow, this is actually one from Bonhams, and it's correct. But they had a bunch of ones that weren't. So I slowly was learning. I made this mistake. There's one reason I keep this watch is because I'm going to keep it as a reminder of doing your homework properly. But this is before there were a lot of resources for this sort of thing. In fact, that would be a great resource again for you to say how to buy a watch. Like you said, if I want a Rolex, I'm not going to get one new. If I'm going to get a Lange, like one of the ones that isn't like the starter ones, you know, you can't just go to the store and get them. You have to build up that buying status with the Lange. There's a great YouTube video now by somebody who's bought a couple that way. So, you know, how do I get that? Now we have the secondary markets. We have Watchbox. We have Watchfinder. We have these
Chrono 24.
Yeah, Chrono 24. Federico has Del Rey Watch, which has some really good deals. And so, Chrono 24, exactly. I bought a couple of Chrono 24. I mean, I show and tell. So here's my Heuer Caliber 12 calculator that I got off Chrono 24 from a seller in Japan about 2 weeks ago.
Very cool.
And it's stunning. In terms of they rebuilt it, it runs fabulous. And I've wanted a Caliber 12 watch for a while, which is one of the first automatic chronographs. So, you know, but learning how to do this, I had to go through some mistakes. Is that something you might consider in the future if you don't already have something like that? Like, how do you buy the right bottle of wine? How do you buy, you know, the right watch without getting, you know, taken?
Yeah. I mean, those are definitely difficult questions to answer. You know, it depends on your personal taste, your budget, what you're looking for. But I think definitely having some sort of general stories about what to do is going to happen in the future for La Patiala. Absolutely.
Yeah, trusted resources are so critical because there's just a lot of people taking advantage out there right now.
Yeah.
So how did you... There was obviously a lot of craziness during COVID with the watch buying community. Was that the catalyst for starting this, that sort of renewed interest in watches, or was this something that you'd been working on for quite a while?
It's something I've been thinking about for a long time, and then my job got caught up in all the craziness, and I went freelance. And I said, okay, this is my time to do it, and I really dedicated myself to building the site, which took about a year, and creating the content. So, yeah, and I think the newfound interest, and then also new people who are becoming interested in watches. It's such a bigger industry than when I started. The people who are interested, the communities, the different types of collectors that are out there. I think there are more people who want to learn about watches than ever before. So it's really, really great timing.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you about that because you've been writing for watches for so long. The last couple of years have just been, I think, just crazy. So I was wondering what your take was on it. But obviously, it's that more people are now new watch collectors.
Yeah.
What do you think of this? Obviously, there's a lot more new watch collectors have come over the last couple of years, but also there's been this real notion of like watches as investments. What do you have an opinion on that?
I mean, I don't care for people who approach collecting as investments. Obviously, it's a huge amount of money to spend on one product. So you want something that's going to keep its value, not lose it. But if you're buying a watch just to keep it in the plastic, in the box with the papers and flip it, you know, I think you're taking away the joy that someone who would actually wear it can get from it. And I don't think that it's the right way to approach it. So there are definitely people who are coming in and they're saying, oh, I want a Nautilus or a Royal Oak. Oh, I can't get that. Now I want a L'Orealto. Oh, I can't get that. Now I want it overseas. And now the wait lists are being driven up on all of these timepieces for people who aren't even going to wear the watches. And it's just pretty disheartening to see. I mean, it's great for retailers and brands, but bad for everyone else.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
One of those groups, someone asked if it was okay, and they had I don't know why people need external validation, but clearly you already know it's kind of weird that you're doing it. You can buy these sticker kits that completely cover every link of the watch and the sides of the watch and everything.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, no, why are you doing it? And I feel like you're only doing that because you're hoping to resell, because those sticker kits cannot look good after a couple of weeks, right? Like it's going to be all marred up and yellowy and gross if you're actually wearing this watch.
That's the Rolex. It seems to have the self-destruction mechanism built in on the clasp, because as soon as you put the watch on, the clasp is like completely scratched. It's like because it's got that high mirror finish to it. I think I made a joke about it in the review that I was going to post, that it's Rolex. As soon as you put it on, it's part of you. If there's no scratch on it, then nobody's ever taken it out of the box, I don't think. But
I'll get you a sticker kit, Sam. That'd be good.
Yeah, we'll do that with casual watch talk. We can make a fortune. Yeah,
that boat has sailed a long time ago. But I know what you mean. They used to pop on Instagram, didn't they? And I mean, it must take hours to do it, because there's like 100 stickers in the pack, and you have to.
For sure, you're gonna get a bubble on it. It's just this is crazy.
Yeah, I have a question for Kristen to follow on a little bit of what you were saying before. It's something that fascinates me because I teach college courses too, and so I'm dealing with what I call kids because they are much younger than I am, and what they're looking for, or the way they look at the world. And I have a son that's a younger son too that's there, and to me, a lot of it is just completely different than what from somebody who's just barely past the baby boomer, is looking for. Have you, looked at the type of audience you're trying to get with La Patiala? And, are you doing things differently for folks like me? Maybe, I'm trying to find out something, or from more the millennial, and I forget all the gen things. They get so confusing. Is that something that you have to take into account, I guess is my question.
Well, I think on the website, everything is just about having top quality content that's easy to read and easy to understand and has beautiful pictures. But then the way that you get it to people can differ based on age. Like I'm about to start a TikTok channel, to teach people about it. And then, Instagram and Facebook, Twitter, you get different audiences. But I think, a lot of Gen Z people approach things with more irreverence than we would. And it's just a little more of a playful attitude. But I do see people who are younger really coveting things that I find a little surprising, like an Hermes Birkin. All of these college kids are like, I need an Hermes Birkin bag. You know, it's a $10,000 bag.
No, they don't. They don't need that coming out of college. I keep telling my college students, don't buy the new car yet. Get going. Yeah. But that's fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. You think of the Birkin bag as being quite rare, but there's two in the Bloomingdale's. I think Bloomingdale's have started doing this like vintage section, or certainly the one in Orlando has got a vintage handbag section. They've got two Birkin bags sort of in the glass there as well. But yeah, it's funny that, isn't it? Because Hermes is almost known for the Birkin bags and like those shoes, aren't they? But you never see anyone in the store when you go. I think it just must be a cycle of people just going in and asking for it's probably similar with Rolex as well, where it's people going in and trying to you try and get these hot models hot watch models, because I've been fresh in my mind because I've just been working on my Rolex review, but I've talked in there about how you need to go in like realistic expectations about what you can actually buy in these stores, or you need to do your research first to understand how to approach asking for watches, or, you know, having several choices in your own mind. But yeah, it's good that you're starting a TikTok, because my wife's one of her favorites YouTube channels, and I forget the name of it. It's a lady who she breaks down luxury items, and she'll compare things about what is the real value here, what the materials that are being used, and the history behind the bag and stuff like that. Because my wife bought a Louis Vuitton purse and she was quite disappointed with it. She ended up taking it back, because she was quite disappointed with the quality and stuff like that. So I think that knowing about what is quality as well as what is luxury, I think it's an interesting question in the watch world, but I guess in the wider world of all the subjects that you're covering is probably more interesting.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've got another question too for Kristen. So you've already become an expert on about 13, 14, 15 different things, right? now that you're an expert on tequila, they want to know if whiskey is on the way next.
Whiskey is on the way. Yes. It's,
there we go.
I'm very passionate about whiskey, and I think I've been putting it off because I have too much to say about the category. And I know it's going to take me quite some time. Like, I'm looking at my bar right now, and I've got 4 bottles of Macallan over there. 12, 15, 18, and a special release. So a rare cast. So definitely coming. Tell me what your questions are, and I'm happy to answer them.
Wow.
Yeah. Wow.
Excellent. Wow.
Because that's a whole thing in itself, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's a whole lifetime of learning. Wow.
Yeah. I'm sorry. My brother-in-law is a big Blanchard's fan. Okay. And so we can get it here in New Jersey easier where he is. So he'll send me a note. Hey, can you go check your sources and get me? Because at one point during COVID, especially, you couldn't find it. Oh yeah. So I got one for him. He's like, "Oh, thank you."
That's nice of you.
You need to check out Isla Whiskies.
Okay.
I'm not familiar with it.
I think he's talking about the island peated whiskeys there.
Yeah. I think that's there.
I don't like peaty whiskeys as much, but I'm more of a.
Oh yeah, the peaty whiskies remind me of holidays with my parents. Love Scotland, and when I lived in the UK, their favourite destination was Scotland. So even when we were kids, we used to go around the distilleries. So I remember the peat smell.
Yeah, PTSD.
Yeah, bringing up
peat STD.
Yeah, but that smell of the whiskey and and those copper distills, I remember that even from being a kid.
Wow.
I have another question, so I'm going to jump on it again, if that's okay.
Please.
So one of the things that's rampant in the watch industry, and you know this well, Kristen, is the now emergence of these super fakes. So you have, and I saw the first super fake of an Omega. With supposedly, a coaxial movement in it now, but it was close. They couldn't do the coaxial movement. And if you know what you're doing, you can tell that it's not, but I've been seeing, you can go on YouTube, you can see all the things, but so the watch industry is suffering from that, of course, but what about some of these other ones? It's like, I read a story about the wine industry and there are fake, bottles of wine that were auctioned off, and I don't know how you do that. That sort of thing. Or I could imagine Bulgari jewelry being probably anything that's expensive could probably be faked. How do you? Is that something you're dealing with, or something that concerns you, or just I'm just curious of where you are.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge problem in all industries. And what you're referring to about wine is probably from the documentary Sour Grapes, where this man named Rudy, and I can't pronounce his last name, basically counterfeited thousands of bottles of the world's most exclusive wines in his apartment, and just had, stacks and stacks of labels. And he was just blending wines together and saying that. And then they were actually being sold at an auction house. So there's tons of counterfeit wine out there, which is definitely a problem. So I think the blockchain will eventually help brands really secure the chain of ownership. And, some watch brands are already doing that. They're doing it in handbags. Like I just got a new Bulgari bag and I put my phone in it, and all of a sudden a QR code popped up because there was some sort of RFID chip in there that you can register it. So it is really interesting how brands are using technology. And of course, as technology improves for security, it also improves for counterfeits. So it's kind of, everyone's just chasing their tails. But as long as you're buying from a reputable person, retailer, doing your due diligence, you should be safe in the watch industry.
Yeah. I know Breitling has been doing that with
I was going to say, I think that the trick in that, Todd, and the challenge is that there is clearly a market that doesn't care if it's counterfeit, right? Yeah. So they're all about the Instagram thing. And then you who are looking for the real product are like, well, could genuinely make a mistake and get caught up in it.
And it devalues the product. As an example, I was in Brussels for a conference, and we went walking, my wife and I went walking around, and in I forgot one of the main squares, these guys run out with sheets full of fake handbags. And they're all like doing this, and they're trying to negotiate with the tourists. And then all of a sudden the police come, blah, 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 and they just grab up the sheets real fast, and they try to run away. And at one point, one of them dropped it, and all these fake handbags went bouncing everywhere. And we were just standing there looking at this going, and that's in Brussels. I can't imagine what it's like in, other countries. I spent some time in Cambodia. There is no what I'm looking for, trademark or law, anything in Cambodia. You can, everything in Cambodia you buy is either off the back of a truck somewhere or it's faked.
Okay.
Yeah, because they don't have the laws against that. And so I can imagine in Asian countries that have loose copyright and patent law and that sort of thing could be really bad.
Yeah, we experienced it in Kuala Lumpur and Penang. It's the same. The tour guide told us that you can have life in prison if you're found with drugs, but if you're found with fake, it's just they don't care about the fake stuff. And I remember going to the night markets and seeing where they showed the actual factory. They had a book that showed the lineage of the fake handbags and the factories and how they were made and stuff. So it's definitely, I think in the watch world, you're totally right. I think there is a part of the community that doesn't really care whether it's fake or not, which is a shame. But I know I was going to say, Todd, that I know Breitling and I think maybe Hublot and a few others have started doing the blockchain, registering their blockchain. I think Richard Mille does it as well, or at least they have a very comprehensive database that supposedly they know every time a watch changes hands.
I think Vacheron is as well. Could be wrong, but what people, they might think it's a victimless crime, but really it's not. I mean, sex trafficking, violence, gangs, child labor, it's not victimless. It's a huge problem, and I obviously don't support it in any way, shape, or form.
No, and there's been some big YouTubers as well. There's a very famous YouTuber that I'm sure people will know in the comment section, but there was a very famous, very well respected YouTuber that was reviewing and selling fake watches. So it has its tentacles bleeds out into all communities, and that for a period definitely knocked the credibility of, I think, people doing YouTube and things like that in general.
Wow. That's awful.
Yeah, it is.
Well, I noticed on the website as well, you're starting to do, you've got like a store that you're building out. Can you ever imagine going into like Hodinkee territory where there's like a watch part of that?
Or Teddy Balbazzar or something like that, where you actually are a representative for a name brand?
No, not at this stage. The reason I started the store was I was sick of going to websites and saying, I need a wine glass recommendation. And then they would say, here are the 25 best wine glasses, because they're just trying to get all the affiliate links. So in the store, there's only one of everything, and it's linking to an external retailer. So if you say, I need an oyster knife, I'm like, here's the best one. Trust me, you don't need a different oyster knife. Yep. Those are the gloves. That's the platter. So it's just easy for people to look at because, you know, a lot of websites drive me absolutely crazy. Like, here's your vintage champagne, get Dom. For a non-vintage, get this Ruinart Blanc de Blancs. So I think it makes it easier for consumers. But retail is a whole other beast. And this really, for me, is more about curating content.
Yeah, absolutely. And Dom Perignon obviously stole Lady Gaga from Tudor. She was a Tudor ambassador, and then she mysteriously appeared, and now she's. But I thought she was actually a great ambassador for Tudor. I don't think they used her quite as much. I think they were getting David Beckham out onto the events a little bit more than Lady Gaga.
I did get to meet David Beckham at a Tudor event, and he is very dreamy.
Yeah, I've never met him in person, but growing up I'm from Manchester originally, and everyone I ever know that's met him has said he's a really nice guy. Which you know, for that team that he played on at Manchester United, there wasn't many. A few of the main guys weren't as nice as they perhaps were thought to be. But you always hear that David Beckham's a really nice guy. Shall we? I know when we were chatting before the live stream, we discussed over email the new Patek watches, and I'm interested to know your opinion on these, because I know there's a couple of YouTubers that have made, and a couple of articles written certainly around the 5811, and I tend not to agree with some of the viewpoints about it. But before we start, I mean, are you? I guess I'll ask it this way: are you of the view that this is just like a slight iteration of previous models, or do you think that these are actually sort of like a fresh take on previous versions? Which camp do you sit in, Kristen?
I mean, if we're talking about Nautilus, slight changes, you know, but I think there are some really impressive chronographs that they unveiled, especially the lefty split second perpetual calendar, inverting the counters, making it a mono pusher. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah, I'm looking at it on your site now.
I'll give you. I still see. There was preamble to this, and I was telling Sam 6 months ago there was a whole thing like Patek's going to discontinue the 5711, and we don't want to be a watch brand that's only known for the 5711, and we want to distance ourselves from that and showcase our other things. And then they just brought out a 5811 that is exactly like a 5711 on the surface. It seemed like a move to just create a hype and a demand, like everything that Rolex gets accused of creating false demand to up the prices. It just felt like that, because I was like, oh, that's cool. They're going to do their thing. And then that came out, and I'm like, okay, that's the exact same watch.
In my opinion, the 5711 in steel the hype around it is just kind of unbelievable. And I understand why Thierry Stern would be disappointed. We're Patek Philippe, we're a prestigious house. We make the most complicated watches on earth, and everyone is losing their mind over a steel watch. This is absolutely crazy. But you do also need to respect your collectors, help them figure out, give them what they're looking for, because that's why they like your brand. So I think by putting it in white gold, which doubles the retail price, which will make it less accessible on the secondary market, hopefully that will cool down this retail frenzy. People will start looking at other timepieces. I think the secondary market, of course, I could still just pump it up even more, but there has to be a limit to what people are going to pay. Are you going to pay $120,000 for a steel watch when you can buy the white gold one for under 70 at retail? Probably not. Well,
that's what I was saying though too before. The steel costs so much; it's hardly any difference between the steel and the precious metals.
Yeah,
at that point,
it was like 40 for the steel at retail. This is 68
retail, right?
Yeah, and then they're just up, tripling it for the secondary market.
Yeah, and he was true to his word in the fact that they've not made a steel Nautilus like the 50. I think because I was even reading back, because did I remember that right? And I do remember the interview he did where he was talking about the steel version. So I know I was watching another YouTuber, and it was sort of insinuating that, oh, they pulled the wool over their eyes and they were going to re-release it, but they have released it in a precious. They've released it in white gold. I mean, it's negligible, the case difference, obviously, but so they've been kind of true to their word that they haven't released a steel version of this. But I feel, I mean, in a previous life before the prices went crazy, that did feel like it was a obtainable watch. I mean, and the same with the Aquanaut. It's a shame that the Aquanaut prices went crazy, because I remember a time when the Aquanaut could be had at pre-owned at like a slight discount. Because I remember reviewing one, and it was still at my price range then, but it was within reason that you could afford one. And now, obviously, on the pre-owned market, they've gone crazy.
Well, one thing's for sure is that Patek will sell every single one of these.
Oh, yeah,
and there will be no issue whatsoever with their marketing.
Yeah, and I know Roman Scharf over on the Luxury Bazaar. He was thinking that this they were doing price prediction, and he was thinking that this 5712, which I don't know if it's got the retail price on, but they were saying that this could go to 250. They were thinking on pre-owned. Yeah, it's 82,000 now. They were thinking it would 3x on pre-owned market, just because of he said he believed it was the most like cohesive design. The rose gold with the chocolate dial.
It is gorgeous.
It is.
I just think for that, within that, and this is just my personal aesthetic, in that watch style, I just prefer a 3-hander as opposed to extra complications in that. That's just me.
Oh, you mean on the smaller sort of, on the Nautilus dial rather than
Nautilus style.
Yeah,
like
having
the one that Kristen was referring to earlier. That I love. It's a completely different watch. That's gorgeous.
Yeah, and the green split second perpetual, I just love that too.
That's awesome.
So gorgeous. The dial composition is so harmonious, using the aperture combination with the subdials. It's just stunning.
Oh, and the movement.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Spikes.
Yeah, I'm loving this. I'm loving this green is the new blue. I'm all over it. That's why. Yeah, that's why. When as soon as this date just came out with the green dial, I was like, that's it. I'm all over it, because I was very much blue watches before then. But I'm loving this. Yeah, green is the new blue. I love the way that they've been doing this. I also found it fascinating. I like the way that they've done this. The rainbow, I believe they're sapphires, but also this one. It's like a gradient. It's not a rainbow, but it's like gradient brown and yellow sapphires, which is incredible that they've managed to get all the grades and then built this watch. I think for a lady's watch is amazing. Really, the look of it.
Yeah, you don't get this color combination a lot, and it does really show the expertise of Patek Philippe's gemologists and gem setters to be able to create this. And it's nice that it came out in October. The colors are very, very fall, the changing leaves, but they go so well with the beautiful rose gold.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that actually, that it's very fall colors.
It's very fall. It is.
Yeah.
Do you see these out in the wild? I mean, obviously these are new, Kristen, but I'm curious because of all the places that you frequent, where luxury is which per your business, right? And so you'll see all kinds of things. Do you see some of these? You mentioned, it's a shame when people buy these and then stick them in a vault somewhere and they don't get any real time. But I mean, for these Pateks and, other ones of similar rarity and cost, do you see them being worn?
I do. Yeah. In New York. Absolutely. You see a lot of, Nautilus, Royal Oak, Rolex all over the place. Not as many independent designers, which I think is a shame, but I do see people wearing these watches. Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting too, because especially when you refer to, and this is going to sound all wrong, but in the ladies models, apparently Cartier has under the belief that for the most part, women prefer a quartz watch, one that they don't have to set, and to get
something think that as well, I think.
Yeah. And to have a watch with that movement, that's going to require a little bit of love and care. It's just interesting. I'm curious how well those do so.
I think there's been a big change in women's watches in the past 5 years. Before, everything was pink it and shrink it. put some diamonds on the
Right.
bezel, quartz movement in it, make it smaller, and there wasn't a lot of care given to women's watches. And there are certainly women who do not want to set their watch. They don't want to wind it. Fine. Get a quartz movement. Great. But brands should definitely be offering the option for complicated watches. And you're seeing that, you know, Vacheron Constantin came out with their first perpetual calendar watch for women earlier this year. This chronograph, the Aquanaut Rainbow Luce, is gorgeous from Patek. And yeah, I think there's also, you know, some watches are becoming smaller, unisex. So I think you'll find more women wearing the watch. Again, it just is about changing your mindset. Like what you were saying, Todd, about your Gen Z students just thinking that the watches should all be battery powered. It's just a change. I mean, my grandmother gave me a Bowman Mercier quartz powered watch when she passed away. And even though I wrote about mechanical watches, I was wearing the quartz powered one for a while. And then I got my Reverso and I would be like, oh, I have to keep winding this thing. So it just is a mindset shift. But if you appreciate it and if you understand it because you learned about it, then I think it takes your relationship with the watch and with time to a different place.
Yeah, that's such a great point. Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, interesting point, Todd. The only Patek I've seen in the wild was I've reviewed one of the. It wasn't this world timer with the chronograph, but it was the. Beautiful. Yeah, it really is. Yeah, with the salmon dial.
And look at the gradient, not gradient, but it's got a pattern. I mean,
like the Guilloche on the.
If price is no object, that's.
Well, interesting. I believe this is stainless steel. I could be wrong. Yeah, it's steel. So it's a stainless steel brand complication in there. I've reviewed the non-chronograph version of the world timer on the channel, the one with the grey dial. There was something about it that I didn't gel with, and I when I think back on it, I think it was because it was then it was a discount. It was actually I think they retailed for maybe 60 or something, and the retailer I went to, they had it for like 45, and I bet you that was a couple of years ago, and I'm sure that's they're now trading above retail. But I remember the actual world timer complication. I don't know. It just I didn't gel with it, but I always wanted to review a Nautilus because when I've reviewed things like the Royal Oak and stuff like that in person, they're completely different than seeing pictures online. That the feel of them and things like that. Whereas, so I always wanted to see review a Nautilus.
Yeah, I mean, when you're looking at these luxury watches, the way that the bracelets are integrated, how they feel, the links, the weight, it's something that you can't convey just through images, and definitely does make a difference to see, hold, and feel them in person.
Yeah, I'm always intrigued, especially with the Aquanaut and obviously this new rose gold version, what the rubber bracelet is, what the rubber strap is like on these watches, like, because I've had watches with some really good rubber bracelets, but you think, wow, how much of it? Because I believe this one is in the $200,000 range. $212,900 US. So you wonder how good is a rubber a rubber strap on this watch for that price? But
it'll be great. I can tell you that.
I'm just old fashioned. If I was paying $200,000, I sure would like to have a gold bracelet. I don't know about a rubber bracelet.
Yeah, I'm intrigued about I've always been intrigued about the Oyster Flex bracelet, because I know some people that love it, and then Ricky over at Scottish Watches was not a fan of it at all. But I think that actually has I think that has a titanium bracelet within the actual rubber itself. So it's sort of like a hybrid strap.
Right.
Well, that's supposed to be awesome. Very comfortable.
Hey, Kristen,
like the channels.
Okay. Sorry, Todd.
Oh yeah, fine.
No, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I did. Kristen, did you say you brought some Pateks?
No, I don't have any Pateks with me. I was just ready to discuss those new releases.
No, that's no problem. I wanted to make sure before we end if you had some Pateks.
Yeah,
I can pull out a Serpenti if you're interested.
I'm not even sure. Oh yeah, is that the?
Oh,
yeah, the triple wrap. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh,
very
wow.
cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I think we want to see it.
Yeah.
Oh, it's in my safe. I have to go get it.
No, don't worry about it. Actually, I believe I think you've actually there's pictures on the your website, isn't there, about that watch? I think because I thought that was Piaget. It's not.
No, it's the Bulgari Serpenti Tuba Glass watch.
Bulgari, yeah.
Triple wrap is, I think, the most iconic, but they also make single wraps.
Oh,
I'm intrigued now. How wearable is that watch?
So wearable. I wear it all the time. I love it.
Oh,
so it's
there.
Well, I don't have the high jewelry version.
Oh,
but yeah, so it has the coils inside, and you just sort of wrap it around your wrist, and it's super comfortable to wear.
So they're not fixed; they'll go around your wrist.
Yeah.
Oh,
wow.
Yeah.
So okay, so it goes complete. Does it go completely flat, and then you can wrap it around?
No. It has a structure that's flexible, but it doesn't go completely flat. Yeah.
Okay. I could never.
It's like a old-fashioned phone cord.
Yeah, I would agree with you.
Yeah. So we've got a last question here. Can we hear some of Kristen's favorite things? Favorite wine, tequila, car. This is a lot. Car, oyster, destinations.
Quick fire style, like one, boom, boom, boom.
Yeah.
Okay. My favorite wine is champagne. My favorite producer would be Krug, but it's very pricey. So my day-to-day is Rienart Blanc de Blanc. My favorite tequila. I recently tried Penta tequila, which is made by some Napa winemakers, and they age it in ex-American oak or French oak barrels. It's just interesting. It has really beautiful vanilla. I think that would be my favorite tequila of the moment, but I also like Casa Dragonis a lot. My favorite car, Bentley GT. Live in New York. I don't have a car, so I would say that's my favorite. I think Bentley really combines like the feel of driving like an amazing luxury, powerful car, but it's actually comfortable. Like when you're driving a McLaren, you're like, oh my God, I'm driving a McLaren, and it's very, very loud. So if you're into that, it's fun, but just for pure luxury, I think Bentley's the best. My favorite oyster, Island Creek oyster from Duxbury, Massachusetts. Absolutely fantastic. It's what Thomas Keller uses at Per Se in his famous oysters and pearl dish. My favorite destination is a beautiful beach in a 5-star hotel, and I'm not very picky where.
Wow, that was awesome.
Wow. Rapid fire.
And we didn't even prompt you for any of that. That was right off the cuff.
Oh, thanks.
Now you have to do it in French. No, I'm just kidding.
Awesome. Well, just go through and see if we've got any questions we missed. I think we got the most of them.
I think there was one there. If I scroll up, that was a good point, and I kind of half made it, but about my Bonhams experience is that you expect these well-regarded auction houses to be experts, and from what I've seen, a lot of times they aren't. Even though each of these is curated by a specialist, there oftentimes they don't seem to have. At least in the watch industry, they don't seem to have necessarily all of the knowledge necessary to do it correctly. At least from some of the things I've seen. But so just because you buy something from Bonhams doesn't mean that it is indeed absolutely like it should be. And by the way, with all the disclaimers, when you bid on these things, you're never going to get, I don't know if they'll take it back. They probably won't unless it's absolutely something that's wrong. But you're just buyer beware. You still have to do all your own homework.
Yeah, I think they usually guarantee for a year. But you're right. The disclaimers are very, very clear that this might not be what they say it is. It might not be working. So it's kind of a crapshoot. You have to make an educated guess. If I were to buy a really expensive piece at auction, I would definitely bring my own specialist with me to take a look at the timepiece. But otherwise, you can get a really great deal at auction, which is, I think, one reason why people like it. But maybe you want to go to a secondary retail boutique that does actually authenticate their watches in a different way.
Yeah. I mean, and that would be another excellent process for the website to go through, isn't it? Like, how do you approach an authenticator, or how do you know where to get certain watches authenticated? Because, that can be a complete unknown, and that usually it's all through personal relationships of people know somebody who knows something about them. But it generally, if you're bidding on high value watches, because you can't go into a Rolex store and ask them to authenticate it, they have to send it off for service. The same with Omega as well, I think.
Right.
One more one more question if we have time, because this is a discussion my wife and I had right before we came on. And it's from Michael. It says, what about affordable luxury? Is that a thing? And my stance is it's not luxury if it's affordable. Kristen, your thoughts?
Well, I think sometimes people think luxury has to be, I'm eating caviar covered in gold on a private jet. And that's not necessarily luxury. And a lot of the times those are tacky and I wouldn't consider them to be luxurious experiences. What's luxury is having like amazing service. It's like the perfect taco on the perfect beach, a beautiful sunset and a great glass of wine and great company. Like that's a luxury experience. And that doesn't have to cost thousands of dollars. But when you are in like an absolute amazing, 5-star hotel, it's a completely different experience to a 3-star hotel. So you can find luxurious experiences that are attainable. Like, for example, caviar is my favorite food. I love caviar. I eat it all the time. And you can get a tin of caviar for like $100. It's great caviar. Sure, you're not going to eat that every day, but you can have a lot of fun with your friends. You can enjoy it. It can be great for a special occasion. And again, it's $100. So that's not a crazy amount of money. So I would consider that an affordable luxury that people can enjoy.
I like it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Well, before we go, I'll just put the website up here. So lapatiala.com. It's a great resource. I've been reading it all day. If you're new to watch collecting or you just want to refresh your knowledge on certain things, it's a really great resource. So check it out. I've already put the link in the description down below, but definitely check it out. Kristen, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. It was really great to chat with you guys.
Nice to meet you.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you.
And thanks everyone for being so active in the comments. And we'll see you next time on Casual Watch Talk Live.
Thank you.